the last 2 years we've been largely confined, also very unique, is that we are meeting one-to-one. We have the chance to meet in person. As we would all realize, virtual is good, but the interaction you have in person has a totally different feel. So I'm hoping today we would have a very interesting deliberation and interesting session. In fact, we have a lot of speakers lined up today in the first session, which I would be moderating also. We have some very eminent speakers lined up. Friends, let me just, maybe before we start with the presentations, I would just like to share some statistics and figures with you. If we look at the mobility scenario in India. So the Indian automotive industry, friends, is the 5th largest in the world, and we are slated to become the 3rd largest by 2030. Now, catering to a vast domestic market, our reliance has been on conventional mode of fuel-intensive mobility, which ultimately will not be sustainable as we go ahead. So in an effort to address this, the federal policy makers are developing a mobility option that is shared, connected, and electric, and have projected, in fact, an ambitious target of achieving 100% electrification by 2030. Hence, by making the shift towards electric vehicle, India stands to gain on various fronts. According to an independent study by the Center for Energy Finance, if India maintains steady progress to meet its ambitious 2030 target, the EV market in India has a potential to be a US $206 billion opportunity by 2030. In fact, this would require a cumulative investment of over $180 billion in vehicle production and charging infrastructure. As per another report by India Energy Storage Alliance, projects that the Indian EV market will grow at a CAGR of almost 36% till 2026. The EV market is also projected to grow at a CAGR of 30% during the same period. So in fact, friends, regardless of the country's ambitious targets, one can say that the EV market is still in a nascent stage in India. However, looking at it differently, India offers the world's perhaps the largest untapped market, where 100% foreign direct investment is possible. Further, the federal government is also making genuine attempts to promote the electrification, the e-mobility market in India through various schemes. We have the FAME scheme. Then we have also the recently announced production-linked incentive schemes. So the main aim of these schemes is to boost the impact or the penetration of e-vehicles in the Indian market. Later on during my presentation, I would touch certain figures also on the e-vehicle sales in India. But I think this is very important for India, because if we look at the pollution through vehicular pollution in India, depending on which city you are, this could vary from 25 to 30%. And when we talk about achieving a certain level of zero carbon emission by 2070, I think it is imperative for us that we move from the traditional, from fossil fuel to more greener energy. And this is what is the requirement of India presently. So I'm sure the seminar today would touch on various aspects of sustainability, sustainable mobility, which is so important in India, especially when we look at the larger cities in India. Friends, I would like to give you an overview of the e-mobility industry in India. So friends, as we heard, India is the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. the pollution factor, and India imports 85% of oil and 53% of the gas to meet our requirement. So I think here is where e-mobility can really make an impact and help in carbon reduction in India. And when we talk about shared, connected electric mobility, now this can help to save $330 billion, which is equivalent to almost 287 billion euros, and also help in the reducing our import of oil. So I think this is a very important aspect when we are talking of sustainable cities or talking of India's endeavor to reduce the carbon emissions. Going ahead, friend, let's look at some of the pollution levels in the city. Of course, as you can see here, most of our cities, or a good number of our cities, are above the average pollution level. We take that average level as 65 micrograms per cubic meter. So if you see, many of our cities are above this average level. Luckily, Bangalore is marginally below the average. Of course, as you can see on the graph on the right-hand side, this has been one of the positive impacts of pandemic, that the pollution levels have dropped dramatically in the cities. But this really shows that where we stand when we talk about the pollution levels and what needs to be done. So there's a lot to be done from the endeavors or from the government side, as well as the awareness among the population, so that these pollution levels can be reduced. And one way is certainly when we talk about the possibility of electric mobility. And I think here the government has already made a lot of efforts. We have the FAME scheme, which is the faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles. The FAME scheme, FAME 2, was introduced in 2019. Under this FAME scheme, the budget outlay is 10,000 crores. Then there are various schemes, either from the central government or also from the state government, which help and support the electric vehicle sales. And in fact, under the FAME scheme, if we take the subsidies, it's almost coming up to 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour. And looking at the global scenario, in fact, India offers one of the highest subsidies for electric vehicle. And here what I've shown on the graph is for passenger vehicle, which has actually considerable less subsidy when we compare to two-wheelers and three-wheelers. In fact, for two-wheelers, depending on the city, depending on the state, the subsidy can range between 35% right up to 55%. So I think there is a lot of good work that is being done at the state government level, at the central government level, to really promote the e-mobility or the e-vehicle industry in India. Now, beyond this FAME scheme, we have the other schemes also, what has been in fact announced during the pandemic. We have the PLI scheme, the Production Linked Incentive Scheme for ACC battery storage. Now here there are incentives worth almost 18,000 crores, which can be provided over a 5-year period. This is supposed to give a boost to domestic production of batteries and reduce our dependency on imports of batteries. And when we look at the electric vehicle scenario in India, friends, the battery actually constitutes a major cost of the e-mobility in India. So I think this PLI scheme will also help in boosting e-mobility as well as reduction in the cost. Now beyond this, there was another scheme which the government has announced, which is the PLI scheme for the automobile sector. And in fact, you would have read in the papers 2 days back, it was mentioned that 70 companies have been selected for this PLI scheme under the automobile sector. And these include some of the OEMs as well as the auto component manufacturers. Again, a huge scheme in the sense that incentives provided are almost to the tune of 26,000 crores, which can be provided over a 5-year period. This scheme is supposed to attract investments up to 42,000 or 43,000 crores. And what is a good part of it is, as per the applications received, this amount of investment, in fact, is much higher. It is somewhere to the tune of 73,000 crores that can come in if these projects are implemented. And we talk about, I think one of the challenges in India we have is how do you get employment? How do you get gainful employment? And I think this is where almost an employment generation of 7.5 lakh can be created through this scheme. The incremental production is again huge, which can come over the next 5 years. So I think these are steps in the right direction from the government side. And let us see what has this led to, which I think is very positive. If we see the electric vehicle sales in India, friends, in 2021, this has increased by almost 170%. If we look at the figures, in 2020, it was about 1,23,000, and it has jumped up to 3,30,000 in 2021. So I think this is a huge boost that the e-mobility sector has got in 2021. And I'm sure with the endeavors of the state government, the central government, this can certainly, the graph will only go ahead and go forward. And this augurs very well when we talk about reduction in our pollution, when we talk about reducing the carbon emission. So as you can see also in this graph, the main driver, of course, have been the two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And we are very happy that Karnataka also is a major player when we talk about the e-mobility. In fact, after Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka is in the second position. So before I end my presentation, friends, I would like to mention what drives actually the e-mobility. And there is an interesting phrase from Maxime Bernier, a Canadian politician. He says it's not the government incentive, it's not that we must have electric cars. Actually, it is a combination of demand. The market was ready for that and people were ready for that. So that's why we have electric cars. Although in India, one can say to a large extent till now, the drive is coming from the government sector. And finally, friends, I would like to end on what we do. I am part of the German Engineering Federation, VDMA. We are the largest industrial association in Europe, representing about 3,400 companies. Also beyond Germany now, the European, we have almost 250 companies from Europe who have joined VDMA. The turnover of the VDMA members is about 205 billion euros, and as we know, the German industry is very much dependent on exports. We are a 130-year-old association, carry a lot of heritage when we talk about the association. And India was one of the first overseas offices. We are very proud of the fact that India was one of the first overseas offices of VDMA. And we have a presence here in Bangalore also. So if any one of you are looking to connect to the German industry, please feel free to get in touch with us. So thank you, friends. Wishing you a lot of success. And as we end the financial year, wishing you a great closure to the financial year and buoyancy and resilience and agility in the new financial year. Thank you very much.